A really powerful question to ask yourself and your staff is, what do you love doing? If you just focus on what you love doing daily and everything else on your list of to-do was automated, how would that make you feel?
There is a $112 billion number floating around Australian boardrooms. It's the projected economic value of AI adoption to our economy by 2030. It's large, it's well-cited, and it's doing exactly what numbers like that always do, making everybody want to act before they've thought. Meanwhile, on Australian construction sites, productivity has grown around 1% in 2 decades. 70% of digital transformation projects fail to deliver. And every business owner from Brisbane to Bunbury knows the feeling of signing off on a software project, waiting 6 months, and getting back something that was technically built, but doesn't actually solve the problem we're trying to solve. The gap between the headline and the shop floor, between knowing what is wrong and knowing what to build, is where most of the real work of AI in automation is going to be done over the next decade. And the people doing it are not the ones writing the McKinsey reports. They're the ones sitting across from people getting it wrong. Today on the Mastering podcast, we're joined by 2 of them. Lucas Meadowcroft and Dean Cavanagh are co-founders of Crofti, a Brisbane-based AI innovation consultancy that spent 12 years working specifically with construction and manufacturing businesses on part of the technology projects that almost no one talks about, the part before anything gets built. Lucas is the founder, the strategist, and the rare Australian tech CEO whose origin story runs through TAFE rather than university. Dean is the technical lead, the one who sat across from more developers, more implementation teams, and more frustrated business owners than most people will in a lifetime. I'm Magnus Olson, and I'm joined by my favourite co-host, a powerhouse in education and Australian Masters athlete, Don Sanka Small. Lucas and Dean, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, boys.
Thank you.
I want to be the favourite podcast host.
Well, yeah, it's weird when you're having another co-host in front of you and calling me favourite. Thanks, mate. I didn't write this at all.
Lucas, you and I have got something in common, and academia is not it. You finished year 12 with an OP of 24. That's 1 point above the worst possible mark in the old Queensland system. I didn't even get to year 12. So university was off the table. You're 24 years old and you're the CEO of an AI consultancy and co-founder of 4 companies. What was that kid in Ipswich actually good at that the school system wasn't very good at measuring?
Making friends, influencing people, going to the skate park, having a lot of fun. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Both my parents were blue-collar workers, and a university or just the education system in general was broken for me because having dyslexia, I can't even say that word. Like it's just not a thing, right? And so how do you go from following a path of what the schooling system tells you to then finding your passion? And school was just about having fun. It wasn't until I left school and really dove into technology and back then I was building computers. And once we started building computers, that's why what I loved was the outcome, not the actual building part. That was kind of okay, but the outcome was seeing the lights light up and the people using the computers and how they were using it and what it was making them feel.
You've become a bit of a voice for TAFE Queensland. What changed for you the moment you walked into Bremer TAFE that you couldn't achieve from a decade of high school?
Practical implementation of using the tools. So back then it was learning how to develop, learning how to code, and using the physically the teacher showing you step-by-step process on how to use that technology to physically have an outcome. Back then I was building web pages and building really mini apps. Chalk and cheese to what it is today. But it's like the practical application. Yeah. You don't get practical application in school.
Yeah, let's just expand on that because both you and I, we've gone through that TAFE system, me as an apprentice carpenter, and Don's gone through the university sector. Would you say that that's true? Because I think that the TAFE system is very practical, whereas university is a bit more theory-based. Is that true?
It's definitely practical. So the funny thing is that I was on a traineeship, and I was actually on a traineeship with where I met Dean, my first computer job, and Dean was my boss. And so, so this is how we initially connected. I went through this traineeship program with that IT company, and it was through that process, and that was through TAFE, to going, well, this is what I'm doing in the real world. How does that relate to the actual certification, and bringing those two together?
I think it is becoming better. And also there's a false truth to that too. If you look at certain professions, like if you want to become a doctor, you do have to have that practical sort of education. If you want to become a teacher, you do have to go and do certain hours. Nurses is the same thing. There are certain areas of education still lacks that practicality, especially if you're in entrepreneurship or any of those paths that you could have taken. I think there is a lack of practicality. I think that's what we're talking about.
Well, I think even 20 years ago, entrepreneurship wasn't even spoken about at school.
That's right.
There's no conversation around, hey, do you want to start a business? Yeah. No, you're at school back then to get a job, to get a profession, to go and work in a government or corporate. That's what you get told to do. I think today it's a whole different kettle of fish, right?
Yeah.
And most 16-year-olds don't even want to be at school because they know they won't be doing whatever they're told to do. They want to go start a company or be an influencer or do some sort of online.
I think that's
sorry, just to put some context around it, Dean. So you guys met at TAFE. So you're a bit of the yin and the yang, I understand. Give us a little bit of your backstory, Dean.
Yeah, so I completed a bachelor at uni, but that's where we met was through a computer store effectively, servicing both retail and to business as well. So I did have that shop front, and that's where Lucas comes in doing the computer build, computer repair, all that sort of stuff through TAFE. That's really where the traineeship kind of kicked off from the relationship point of view.
Yeah, so, every founder has a co-pilot, and Dean seems like you're the co-pilot, but it's the unglamorous job, right? He goes and gets on stages and tells the story, brings the customers in, and then all the problems becomes your problem,
pretty much.
Right? And you have to do the build. What did you guys see in each other that the rest of the world didn't, that made you connect and started building this whole journey together?
I guess for me, and I tell Lucas this, I hope I tell him a lot. His superpower is really about, and I've forgotten it now, which is great. What do I keep telling you? You inspire people.
See, this is why you work together, right?
That's right.
It's a good pair.
He can get everybody motivated in a room and really inspire a lot of people to start thinking differently. Once they're on that sort of thought train, that's when I can really kick in and start to leverage where people's heads are at and bring some of those ideas to life.
And because of my ADHD, there's no chance in hell I could sit down and actually code something for months on end and build a product. It's just not who I am. I get bored until this last 6 weeks with vibe coding. It's too slow. And so I love inspiring and telling the story, but then am I going to physically solve that problem for that customer? Hell no. I literally handball it over to Dean, and that's Dean's that's where he steps in.
So tell us a bit about vibe coding. It's become a buzzword, right? It's coding for idiots, or I didn't call you an idiot.
I'll say yes.
I'll let Dean answer that one.
No, yeah, so the vibe coding side, and Lucas's experience with this might be a little bit different, but essentially being able to use plain language to develop applications is really what that boils down to. And I guess where it's become a buzzword is because there's a lot of expectation that I can just use whatever language, plain language, and I can build amazing, massive applications. And I would say we're getting closer to that, but we're still a little bit short of it. You can still do some amazing builds through this concept of vibe coding.
Before we go more deeper into the technical side of it, right, you started Crofti in 2014. ChatGPT was 8 years away. Talk to us about the bet you were actually making at that point. AI consultancy in 2014 would have been a very different story to sell, the potential that is there now.
And you don't talk to anyone back then about it because no one believed you anyway, or no one to talk to you. So we actually had a IT support business, and in our journey within a couple of years, the biggest frustration we had felt like we were running a childcare centre. You think, okay, we have engineers, we have technical people, they're solving technical problems for customers, but most technical people don't like talking to people. They don't like managing their own time. They don't like, that whole accountability. They just want to go, there's a problem, how do I solve it? So the biggest frustration we had, and where the AI came from originally, was to solve our own problem, which was triage. When a support request would come in, we need to analyze that support request and then understand who's the best person to solve that at what point in time and what that priority list looks like. Because in the technical world, what you class as devs now, but even IT support engineers, most people want to do what's quick and easy. But as soon as you go, well, this is a 3-hour, 4-hour complex thing you got to go solve, that gets pushed to the bottom of the list. And because we all have endorphin hits, we don't do the quick ones, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, quickly do those ones, but the most important ones get left. So it was actually back then, I'll pass this over to Dean. Dean built a really amazing glorified spreadsheet to try and solve this. It was our original first AI model.
Yeah, so I guess going through that sort of understanding where the priorities are, because people did want to manage their own time. They would take from the top, they would cherry pick basically. Yeah, and where we brought AI into the mix, I guess I got frustrated with it and go, there's got to be a better way. I can either throw more people at this, but we're in the tech space. I like building things. I know AI is meant to be able to tackle this. We can see it play with the numbers for banks and insurance. How is it going to play into this sort of space? And that's where my sort of journey started in that space.
So was the focus literally just around time management?
Initially, yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand artificial intelligence has been around for a lot longer than ChatGPT, right? It's automation. It's automated coding, which you guys have been doing. Like even spreadsheet is a
simple version is the macros.
Yeah.
Macros in spreadsheets. Simple form of machine learning back then.
Face ID, most of the things that an Apple has been running since 2007 has been around artificial intelligence, right?
Ray Dalio's been using it. I remember reading in his book that it was one of the things he was using it back in the 60s and 70s in a format.
Yeah, it was purely a lot of the early stuff is very much the numerical forecasting and trending sort of stuff, and that's largely why it was taken up by banks and insurance, to be able to predict certain market trends or insurance risk and things like that. Absolutely. It was very numbers focused.
So you guys could have chosen any industry, financial, to be able to go into, and yet somehow you chose construction and manufacturing. Why?
That's a great question. Honestly, customers pulled us that direction. So what we found was there's a big disconnect between you hit the nail on the head when you did the introduction, Magnus, which was around a lot of these projects and construction and manufacturing core of this. They go and implement these big IT projects. They get not 6 months, they get 12 months, 18 months, 24 months down the road. And they go, what we started off to do, what we actually got as an outcome, they don't align, they don't match. And so with Dean's background around managing projects, there was like this how was it not being done properly? Like it just didn't make sense why it wasn't being done properly. So once we start picking at that and you go deeper, asking all these questions from customers, you realize that it's because no one's doing it in our terminology, no one's doing it properly. And that's because you're starting with a technology solution, not starting with the business problem or the business process that they're trying to solve. And so when you don't start the right direction, you get the wrong results.
So construction, that's been my life for 42 years professionally. What is it exactly about that particular industry that you think has a bigger need than, say, some of those other industries I mentioned, like financial, for example?
It's that an opportunity thing because there's been the least amount of...
Construction hasn't changed for 40 years.
Yep.
Like a huge opportunity, and not just opportunity for us, but opportunity for the actual business themselves, because they've done it. They've used the same spreadsheet for the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, and they haven't changed using that spreadsheet. Then you go, well, why do you use that spreadsheet? Well, that's what we've always done. Yeah. There must be a better way. And so, honestly, for the last couple of years, we've gone all in that sector, and we've done probably 100, 150 projects, AI projects in that sector. And this is not just builders. This is like the construction services industry, right? So think about all the services that people provide to the construction industry.
So trades
could be scaffolders, all the way down to painters. It could be little sparkies and plumbers and like all the tradies that are in the sector. But they all have a really common theme. They quote a job, they win a job, they deliver a job, deliver a project. Same theme. So if you find one problem to solve, you essentially can solve that same problem in every other business that's in that industry. because it's very, very similar. So I would say majority of the work that we've done so far is very much in that front end around the sales, the quoting, the estimating, the tender writing, all that upfront sales component, and then all the way back to delivery of the actual project and managing project and forecasting. And
so did you have to create a problem, or did you have to find new ways of solving a problem that already existed?
Those problems have always existed.
I think what I found in construction, every project we weren't doing the same project, so very different projects in very different sectors. So some of that was a bit difficult to get that same approach. Like when I first started out as a carpenter, we built units and you're doing a block of 4 units. So it was all repetitive work, what you did in one and then you went and did that. So it was easy to build up systems and processes. Then I moved into highly complex architectural homes where there wasn't 2 walls that were the same.
It's the good old 80-20 rule. You know, if you can solve 80% of it the same, which is like very similar in every single project, then all you're tweaking is that last 20%.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Dean,
I would say for the parts that I saw at least across it, there were ways that often, I guess, in that sort of industry, they don't see it as a problem. So I don't think we're introducing or trying to find the problem. It's there. Quite often it was a case of they didn't realise it was a problem, or that the problem's probably a harsh word for it, but there was a different way and potentially a better way to do it. It just wasn't really in their face for that. And sometimes it is a case of salesperson to bring that forward, absolutely. But then as we started to see this AI revolution come around, people are starting to ask more questions around, oh, wait a minute, maybe there is a better way I could be doing this. And that's really started to spur things along more recently. Before ChatGPT, very hard to convince anybody to even look at it and with a different lens whatsoever.
ChatGPT did the marketing for you, right? That's an amazing.
It absolutely did.
Mate, we're going to get technical and ask some specific questions, but before we get there, when the laptops are closed and the WhatsApp chats are done, and when all your threads go quiet, what does the rest of Lucas Meadowcroft and Dean Cavanagh story look like? Lucas, I know you're an avid runner. What makes you get out of bed at 5 a.m. to put those shoes on?
I feel like I have no choice these days because your body just has to do it. But I think if you roll back, you're a better person for having exercise first, in my opinion. I feel better. I can get through the day a lot easier. Whatever stress was going to be on your plate, that stress doesn't exist because you're mentally in the right frame of mind because you've started your day off with the right mental state. If I don't exercise and I don't run, or if I have a week off because you're tapering for a marathon, that week sucks. It's like, you just want to do something, but you shouldn't because you need to listen to your body. You need to follow the plan. Exercise first before anything else.
Well, how's your work-life balance?
Does that exist? Work-life balance?
That's what I want.
The last 6 weeks, it has definitely not exist because I've become one of those gaming sensations where people get lost in games. I've been lost in vibe coding. I've had the most fun I've had in forever in the last 6 weeks. It's been so much fun. It's one of my biggest struggles in life is that whole work-life balance. It's like if I spend 2 hours in the morning exercising, then I'm straight into a laptop. Then I'm on that laptop until 7 p.m., 8 p.m., sometimes midnight. And then you switch off, you have 4 or 5 hours sleep, and then you get back in the road, 2 hours running again the next morning.
You might want to come and have a chat to Magnus, talk about his body, mind and spirit coaching. So, Dean, how about you?
Family is probably my bigger driver. I've got a 12-year-old son and wife, and that's my main motivation, I guess. It's that whole drive. And for me right now, as my son is getting older, it's I guess bringing him some new experiences. And when it comes to the work side of things, it's to show him, I guess, good hard work will actually get results, and to try and build that sort of resilience into my boy.
Nice.
And then Dean's the complete opposite. Dean's not an early morning person. It's Dean will be up until 2 a.m. vibe coding, or actually developing properly, not vibe coding.
So just back on that construction sector, I'm looking at, what is it, about 9% of the GDP in Australia? Is that right, Don?
Yeah, I believe it is.
It's going to be more moving towards the Olympics.
It will get better, but I think it is at about 9% now.
It's 100% going to get a lot worse. I was fortunate enough to interview Jack Hutchinson recently, and it was interesting. We had the same conversation around productivity. So just getting an understanding of where you sit with clients in both sectors. Do you think it's a measurement problem? Is it an investment problem, or is it a culture problem?
It's a mindset problem. So a lot of these larger businesses, they're not pivoting, they're not moving. They're like, no, we've got the sector, we've got 5 years worth of projects. We don't need to change. Smaller companies know that they need to pivot. If they don't pivot, they won't be in business in 3 years. And this is not just a conversation, it's a fact. If you don't pivot in the next little while, you will be out of business in 3 years.
Every other industry's had humongous growth. Like in 20 years, there's been about 1% growth.
Correct. It reminds me of a story of when I was an apprentice. I was on this construction site, and the builder we were working for, he's about 40 years of age. And one of the other carpenters, he would have been 65, about to retire. And we're sitting around, about 20 of us, plasterers, bricklayers, carpenters. And the old carpenter just, the boss said, I think we should do it this way. And old Kevin, 65 years old, says, listen, Ray, mate, I don't mean to tell you what to do, but, mate, I've been doing this for 45 years. And Ray turned to him and said, Kevin, just because you've been doing this your whole life doesn't mean it's right. And the whole place just erupted. I'll never, ever forget that. And it just reminded me when you're talking now in relation to the construction industry. And I work with a lot of people like that. It's like, this is how we do things, way we've always done things. Yeah. And you'd be up against that daily.
Yeah, so we just don't even try to get into that conversation, because if their mindset's not ready to change, this is not a technology conversation. This is a mindset change conversation. I want to do things differently. Just because I've used that spreadsheet for 30 years doesn't mean I still need to. And so if they're not willing to have that conversation, we just move on straight away. We come back to them in 6 months or 12 months when they're really willing to have that conversation.
Do you see a genuine opportunity for that sector, one of the largest sectors that Australia's got, to grow exponentially by
especially with
adopting
the new generation?
Yeah.
The 25-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, they don't want to do it the way it's always been done. Their mindset is AI first. There is no option.
Yeah.
There's no, hey, because Kevin did it the same way for 45 years, they don't know that. They've got no preconceived ideas. Their preconceived ideas, we can only do it as an AI first mindset way.
So as you know, the development I did up in Maleny, we used all modular. I'm a huge fan of modular. Modular is massive over in Europe. It's massive over in Canada. And part of that reason is with the temperatures, they can literally only build outside for 6 months of the year. Do you find that crossover between construction and manufacturing, that the whole modular concept, is there some room there as well?
Are you talking about the actual implementation of modular, or from a tech point of view, modular between the companies?
From a tech point. So you're basically looking at manufacturing that is construction.
Yeah, and a lot of the manufacturing plants we work with actually manufacture for the construction industry.
Right.
So it's very, very much construction.
So it's pretty well joined, right?
Yeah, but I'll let Dean dive into around like what we see in one company is very, very similar to the next.
Well, at the base level, particularly on the I guess how they run the company, as you said before, Magnus, around each project can be quite different. You're still selling a certain dream between lots of units versus an architectural house. The way you execute that can be quite different, and everybody, I guess, a lot of the industry out there kind of try to position their brand around certain types of builds and what they excel at. That's really where some of this nuance comes into, finding out, well, how do you do it? How do you want this to kind of fit with your brand? This is when we're getting into some of the discovery side of things about them. But I don't fully understand the question that you're asking at the start when you put that to Lucas.
Because when I look at manufacturing, that's obviously in the factory. When you're doing modular, that's built in a factory, but it's obviously a construction project that's just not built in situ. So that's obviously the two industries that you guys are working in, and seeing some being able to improve that modular side of things with AI, robotics or whatever, that's helping the actual construction industry.
Yeah, I guess robotics, I will say I would love to get more into the robotic space. It's not been an area of my specialty. That's more my tinkering area rather than professional space. But I do see that sort of path there. There is something about the Australian, I don't know whether or not the mood is changing or not, but modular homes, I actually quite a big fan of it. We were looking at getting modular homes for ourselves as our next move, but there is still something about getting a Queenslander or whatever, the very traditional large house sort of scenario. I think before there's any sort of big move in that space, it might be a bit of adoption around tiny home, that tiny home movement that's happening, a little bit of change there before that really has a big flow-on effect. But that's very non-AI related sort of talk there. I'm going on my own personal experience as I've been going through housing stuff.
Society drives it, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing from a robotics point of view is this year, so 2026 is the year of experimentation with robotics, but 2027 will be the implementation of robotics. So a lot of warehouses today or factories, they haven't had the resources or capacity to be able to do the implementation just because they're not on Amazon. They don't have the millions of dollars of funding lying around. But we're seeing a $1 million robot for a factory now drop to $80K.
And
so $80K is now affordable.
If you read Elon Musk's autobiography, you can see being a trailblazer, the cost of that, like building those robotic factories, the things that he had to do and the calls he had to make and the costs of actually getting it right. That's not something that a mom and pop business can do in every day. And I think you're right. So
this time next year, they will be able to, I can guarantee it. Because, give you an example back to your point before, Magnus, like say we're doing a lot of the PO sales orders, processing a lot of data, which is very common in these manufacturing plants. A customer order comes in, they physically have to key that order into their system. So we automate that process. Then the conversation turns into, okay, so once the orders are automated, how do we then make the process better from the actual manufacturing point of view, or the logistics, as in it's now being manufactured, it's going to be put onto the back of a truck, and then it's got to be shipped. That process still requires a lot of physical human labor. That's what we're going to see massive disruption in the next, say, 18 months, because the robotics will come in. We've automated the front end. Now we can automate the back end using the robotics that we can now get out of the US or get out of China, and then configure it to physically do that pallet loading and so forth.
AI is already here, right? The AIIA and Google have projected that AI could add 112 billion to the Australian economy by 2030. AI Lab Australia has been more conservative models, putting it at about 45 to 50 billion annually. Dean, you are actually delivering this stuff, right? When you hear those numbers, what do you think the gap is between the projected numbers and the work that has to be done for them to be true?
A lot of it, Lucas has spoken a lot about mindset. That is going to be a big driver behind this. There is an element of that where there will be people who adopt, and that will be basically that leading edge for a lot of people. I think in Australia, at least, it's going to be a bit of a wait and see type of scenario. There is a little bit of hesitancy. You'll always have a few front runners. I think in terms of the stats behind that, we'll definitely get there. It's not going to be an even race across all industries. Some will really blaze ahead and others will fall behind. And they're the ones that'll probably drop off, and there'll be a little bit of ripe opportunity potentially. That's kind of how I see that playing out.
The biggest investment so far in AI has been into the legal industry, and there's really good legal AI platforms coming out in the US to help legal firms be better, be faster, be more cost effective for the client. I talked to loads of legal firms here in Australia. They're not embracing it.
Oh, wow.
They're pushing back, right, they're holding back, which means you'll have all this investment goes into AI. All the companies are going and waiting and holding and seeing what's going to happen the next 3 years. What's going to happen? There'll be this big gap. The Kodak moment. But then my personal opinion is all these new law firms will develop as AI first law firms. They'll then take what the customer wants. They'll take that customer order. They'll use AI to generate that legal document, whatever it might be. And then what happens to all these other firms? Like it's an interesting 3 years.
Do you think it's a leadership issue? I think it was PwC report that came out saying that 75% of the leaders are not ready or embracing artificial intelligence. Are you finding that?
Less than 10% of the entire population.
Yeah. Does there need to be more education around the leadership, people who are driving these businesses, on what artificial intelligence is and what?
It's a fear conversation. The media drives fear.
Yeah.
And so what do humans do?
Just expand on that for us. So you're saying only 1% of the population are embracing it at the moment, and that's Australia.
Let's call it the Western population. I can't really comment for China because there's hardly many stats coming out of there. But in the Western population, 1% of businesses are embracing AI. Consumers are getting the ChatGPT apps and then whatever, and doing the pretty email research or whatever, but it's not really adding value to your life. But businesses embracing true AI, I guess the space that we see every day, It's literally still only 1% of businesses are embracing it.
So outside of the funny pictures and the fake videos that are coming out, that's grabbing attention.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the future of work actually adopting.
I'd say social media side of things is doing probably a lot in the AI space. So if you're in the business around social media, it's a different story. There's a lot happening there.
Is there an industry that's embracing it more than others? So you just mentioned the legal industry and you're sort of mentioning the social media, so you're referring to the marketing industry.
I don't know about industry from your perspective, where I guess maybe this is just what's coming up in front of me at least. Maybe more so the departments, sales types of roles, absolutely. Molly agrees. Sales departments, there is stuff across delivery, particularly where it's very digital sort of delivery, documents or reports being generated, that sort of stuff.
Back on people for a minute, is it true as well that with ChatGPT, one of the biggest things, it's from a mental health, from a psychology perspective, people are using it, also from a medical diagnosis perspective. Are those rumours true?
I can't comment on actual stats, but you do see it being used a lot for personal coaching, whether it's mental health coaching or personal coaching. I've put every blood work, every statistic, every Strava, running, everything I've ever done from a fitness, health, and mental perspective is inside my, let's call it, mini AI model. So it knows me better than I know myself, right?
What's the purpose of that for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Magnus. Why did I start that journey? I think I just wanted to know that I was on the right track and I was progressing in the way that I think we as humans want to keep progressing. But I asked my question this the other day because we're moving from ChatGPT over to Claude, and I was like, do I even need to keep the 2 years of history? And I've been thinking to myself, why do I even want that history? So I'm not sure about the answer to it, but I think the original reason was just to make sure that what I'm doing from a mental health and an eating perspective is that, am I achieving an outcome?
I think it's great from a record-keeping perspective. I like the idea of it and I'm not a huge data person, but just understanding what I've done. Like you said, one, I can track the improvement. But secondly, I think from a private health perspective, I know some private health funds, but if you've got that data, the data that can't lie, for example, like your score you're getting, your HRV scores, your resting heart rate, all of the exercise that you do, and then you look at nutrition, your blood work, a DEXA scan, like if all of that, and I'll be more than happy to upload that to my private health and see if I can get a significant discount when you look at some of the people, because I've got my brother's wife's a nurse. One of their daughters is a nurse, and the stories that they tell me in relation to people that are filling up our hospitals.
Talking about data sovereignty is going to become a huge topic of interest, right? Do you think the federal government is investing enough in the AI adoption side of it and then ownership, or do you think they're investing in the wrong places? I think the number was something like 22.7 billion of capital, but it was in all these places that I've never even heard of. Future Made in Australia, AI Adopt Centres, the Responsible AI Network. Is this a substantial investment, or are we just pushing capital at a problem that they're not solving?
I feel like this is a rhetorical question. We already know the answer.
But I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and Dean's.
That's a big word for someone with your education.
Why do you need a AI adoption centre?
That's what I'm asking. My question is, are we actually putting the money in the right places?
Yeah.
Well, the fact that you hadn't even heard of those things before, I guess this is less to how is the government or are they putting enough towards it? Maybe they are, but then what happens afterwards? People don't know about it. They don't know the effective use of it, all that sort of stuff. That's where it...
22.7 billion is a big chunk of cash for our economy. So,
and how do you make proper use of that?
Yeah.
What's the outcome?
Yeah.
What's the outcome for society? That's what I'd like to know.
I mentioned in the intro, 70% of all digital transformations fail. Why?
All right. So across that, it's typically because they're asking for the wrong thing, or they don't even know what they're asking for in that sort of space. Mostly leaders are asking for outcomes that are not particularly measurable or not easily measurable in that sort of space. They might say, I just want to make it efficient. I want more efficiency. That's a great sort of concept, but it's pretty hard to know what to target there. to know what actually needs to change. And for many, I guess we don't see that sort of that translate across. There's not a direct one-to-one. I want more efficiency in what? Where do we start? All that sort of stuff, and they can't normally pinpoint that. And that leads to, I guess, projects being started incorrectly or with the wrong sort of goals in mind.
So I'm thinking, so it's potentially somebody who sticks their hand up and said, I want AI automation. I want to introduce it into my business, but they really don't know where or how. And just by throwing some money at a digital solution, they don't really fully understand what their outcome is. That's what you're saying, Lucas?
Yeah, they're not asking the 5 whys. So this is like something that.
So what are the 5
What
whys?
are the 5 whys, man?
The 5 whys. This is what everyone else asks. What are the 5 whys? What are the 5 whys?
Yeah.
So
wives or whys?
Two different. Yeah, they're two different
let's
things.
go with 5 whys. So when, like to Dean's point, when you start a project or you want to implement AI or you want to do any type of project and you go, well, why? What is the outcome we're trying to achieve? And you go, so perfect example, I want better quoting. Why do you want better quoting? Because I want to, the reason I want better quoting is because I want to win more deals. Why do you want to win more deals? I want to win more deals because I want to scale my business. Why do you want to scale your business? Yeah, it's like you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper until you get it could be acquisition, it could be I want to sell the company, I want to remove myself from that role. I want to. People don't go deep enough.
So what you're saying is you've got to ask the why question 5 times
until you get
realise
Okay.
that you just want enough money that you just want to retire.
Yeah, and
I would change that why that why scenario. You're right, and you ask the question. If I'll pick on the quote one again. Why do we need to focus on your quotes? Why is the quotes the problem? And whatever the answer is, because they're too slow, we're missing out on deals because we don't respond quick enough. Why aren't you able to respond quick enough? Because it's hard to recall the information. It's hard to get that information out of Jim, who knows all this stuff. And why is it all just with Jim? So it's very pressing down that. Lucas went down the path of why is the mindset side of things. I guess when I go through those sort of whys, it's let's press on where the problem is as opposed to the feeling behind it. So Luke is very good at setting up the motivation, sit behind it through that sort of why scenario. And then I will normally come into the very problem specific and drill down on that.
I'm going to ask you some specific examples here, right? To give a bit of clarification on this. So you've mentioned before that the most common mistakes that companies make is that jumping to solutions before defining the problem. And I think that's one of the things that you just brought up. And then they decide they need a new system, runs vendor demos, and somewhere in that process, the question of what do we actually need to do to get this quietly replaced by which of these platforms looks closest. Can you walk us through how that actually unfolds in a real Australian business? We don't need any specific examples.
Yeah, so when most organizations come to us, they know that they want to go on this AI journey, but they don't know where to start, right? And so that they might go, well, actually, the biggest problem in my business today is quoting, sales, report writing, and delivering a project, whatever that biggest problem is, right? And so if they want to, they typically come with that scenario. In 3 months from now and 6 months from now, I want to be able to deliver X, Y, Z faster, better outcomes. It's up to us to figure out how to get that. They don't know. Businesses don't know. Business leaders don't know. And so it's up to us to figure that out for them. And to do that, we have to dive deep into the process with the staff members that are in those organizations that are in the doing the actual task, and then pull it out. So what Dean mentioned before around asking the 5 whys to the individual staff members, that's the detail you need to understand. Because typically a leader is not, let's call it in the trenches. They're not in the weeds. They're not in the trenches, right? And so what they think how a process runs is completely opposite of what actually happens in a business usually. And so, you out there doing the building and the selling and so forth versus how an actual labourer does the building, it's completely chalk and cheese sometimes. And so getting into that detail.
In the construction industry is you got the pie eaters on site and you got the biscuit eaters in the office.
Talking about biscuit eaters, mate, we need a better reporting system isn't a requirement, right? We need to know.
It is a requirement. That's what they want. That's what they tell you.
Well, here's the problem. So I'm asking you, for you, we need to know the profitability of every project within 48 hours of completion is the real problem.
That's yes, and nobody ever comes to me with that as the opening statement.
So why do you
need better reporting? It's like,
why do you think it is so hard to get the Australian leadership teams to do it? It's because you still think the problem is we need a better reporting system?
Because they don't know. They've not thought about it enough. They've not had this honest conversation with themselves personally, and they've not had the honest conversation with their team.
Is it because the people who are building it itself is not being at the core face of it and talking to these leaders?
This is what we do.
Or it's an
right?
education gap?
I'll answer it two ways. We have to do this because it's the only way we get to understand what the actual true problem is to know what to solve. What most times happens is they would go to their internal tech person and go, I need a better reporting system. The tech person then makes loads of assumptions, goes and builds this reporting mechanism and goes, here you go. And then the CEO goes, that's not what I want. You asked for a better reporting system.
they'll say, it looks great.
Yeah.
That looks great, but it's not solving the problem. I've still got questions. I'm like, okay, well, that's where the problem lies. And asking the question the way you did before, Don, that's perfect. You need to know within 48 hours. I might ask the question as to why do you need to know profitability 48 hours after it completes, but whatever the reason is behind the business, so be it. But at least now we have a very structured, measurable target. I guess to your question before, Magnus, around some success stories, and this might help to answer that question a little bit as well. I'll pick on one that's in the timber supply, we'll call it that. So bespoke timber solutions. They identified that if they can get answers to their customer on the spot while the salesperson's on site, they can get the answer there and then for them, whether it's for, say, fire ratings, wind, whatever, I don't know everything about their industry, all that sort of stuff, even pictures and samples and all that sort of stuff and imagery, then they will close that deal more often than not. So it's like, okay, that's great. We've identified that. So now how do we bring that knowledge forward? So in that sort of an instance, just using something like Microsoft Teams, they're already Microsoft House, to be able to bring that information forward straight to the salesperson. They can just ask in plain language, I need a Western Cedar XYZ, whatever it is. What's the fire rating on that? To be able to give to that customer while they're there in front of them. That gets the deal closed. That's just how that particular part of the industry worked. So that's bringing that information, consolidating everything, being able to use AI to just ask in normal language. In the past, they had to go back to a sales team that was back at head office, would then spend half an hour trying to look that up, get that information, text it back to the person, and hopefully they're still on site with whoever's leading that out.
Yeah, so that was a loaded question, right? The reason why I asked was because I wanted to understand, are we actually asking the right questions? It doesn't seem like we are. And is it because in this modern society or modern future of work, the decision-making process, is that different to what it was before? Or do we need to learn to ask different types of questions? Like those questions natively for construction or building industries wouldn't be something that's normal. So how do we fix that problem? How do we get the right people to the table so we can solve problems quicker and build better efficiencies?
I do feel like there's a business coaching piece in there that I feel like sometimes I'm feeling, and I feel very much out of my shoes in that sort of scenario, because you're right, the construction space will ask for, I need better reporting on my business. I want to know how my business is performing. And to me, other than them looking to their financial records, and then that just brings up more questions for them. Why was this not profitable? Where did this cost come from?
I agree. I see it being a business coaching problem, because I think you pointed out, Lucas, you've got the CEO and they go, right, this is a problem, this is what I want to solve, but it's that level of communication right through the organisation and then getting the buy-in of all those people downstream to be able to utilise any new technology. Back to the mindset piece, if they're not prepared to do that and the CEO hasn't got the skills to be able to convince the rest of the organisation to get on board, then it's doomed to fail.
I think the CEO or the C-level suite definitely has the right capability to do it. but they don't have the time constraint. And so they don't have the time and effort to be able to make that happen. So we're coming up with a new terminology in this space called an accountability partner. That could be a business coach, it could be an internal resource, but an accountability partner to hold that person, that team, that department accountable to achieve the outcome within that 3, 6 month, 12-month period. Because right now what we find is you go, we want to solve this reporting. I don't know why we're picking on reporting today, but let's pick on reporting. Everyone wants reporting.
Yeah, they do.
And it used to be always being dashboards. And now the question is, why do you want a dashboard? It's like, well, if you just ask the question and got the answer, then why do you need a dashboard? Because you can just have a natural language conversation now, whole different subject. Yeah. But if you had someone in the middle, whoever this person is, this accountability partner, and they were the ones holding the internal team accountable, the internal department accountable, external consultants accountable, and they just got shit done, then I think everyone wins. That's been missing for 20, 30, 40 years. That accountability partner has not been there, and it's usually gone to the business coach or gone to another exec leader that doesn't have any time, and they got 1 hour towards it a week or something. And I think successful projects, doesn't matter what industry, will be more successful having that accountability partner there.
Yeah, the other thing as well, I've seen this a lot being in the software vendor side, is that most businesses, when they're investing into capital investments, they have a lot more scrutiny than they would in a piece of, $100,000 to $200,000 of software. Does that still exist?
This is like the 1% model, right? What you put 1% into marketing, you put 1% into IT, and that's just a line item and you forget about it.
But is that sustainable in the current marketplace?
I think we need to shift our mindset completely.
Yeah.
It's no longer it's no longer this percent line item. It's if you're not embedding AI into every aspect of your entire business, you're not winning the race.
So do they need to now start looking at software in the same way they would look at a piece of capital?
Yeah, well, I like to use the analogy that's only just come to light where these big firms like OpenAI, Amazon, Microsoft, Anthropic, they're all doing it. Essentially, if they're hiring a new engineer and that new engineer is on $750,000 a year, their expectation is that engineer should also consume $750,000 worth of tokens, consumption of AI. So essentially that role is now $1.5 million. If they're not consuming the same value of their salary, they're not productive. I don't know where they get the figures from, but that's their mindset in this conversation.
So
right?
Just explain to me, when they're spending that token amount, what are you referring to?
So you imagine that the number of words every time you ask a question to ChatGPT, those get turned into numbers or tokens. That's that consumption.
That's how they measure it.
That's how they measure it, and that's how they eventually everybody's moving to that sort of charging model. ChatGPT, you pay a fixed fee, but you also hit certain limits, particularly in Claude. I see that probably more so. There's other ways that other companies use it, but when it comes to business use, it's very much a consumption. You pay for API usage, token usage. That's how that side of it gets measured.
Software as a service is also trying to move towards that direction, right? Instead of per seat, they're looking at tokenized sort of
that's where I think that whole SaaS world is getting turned upside down at the moment, given that most businesses want to – it used to be all about seat count, whereas now it's like, why do I have to pay – for all of these seats when AI can just query your system, get the results? I only need one seat. So that'll probably turn to a consumption model.
This is Molly. If you hear a bit of barking in the background, this is why.
Yeah.
Let's embrace it.
Molly's being needy.
So Molly's embraced AI to the extreme. Haven't you, Molsey?
I've heard, have you guys structured some process that's called discovery and design?
This is what we've understood to try and solve these problems that we're talking about today, right?
So maybe can you explain that for us?
Yeah, so the discovery and design process, or now we've just introduced a new one in the last 6 weeks, which is Discovery and Design Pro. How do you take everything we've been discussing to get a real world outcome the business is looking for, right? And so as an example, if you were to dive into, say, you come to us and say you want to solve this, you want to renew a reporting system, or you want a new quoting system, or you want a new scheduling or resourcing better process, whatever frustration you have in your business, our job is to dive really deep into that frustration, analyze it, and then figure out how to solve it using AI. I'll let Dean get into the weeds because I'll talk about the from a high level point of view. The high level point of view is usually the C-level suite, the business owner wants an outcome. So I have a really good strategy conversation around the outcome and really dive into why do you even want that outcome to get to the nitty gritty, because usually they don't know. Once we understand that outcome, then essentially I handball it over to Dean and the development team, and then they actually figure out the real root cause of that outcome and then build the problem. Build the solution to solve the problem.
Solve the problem. So I guess it's a very structured approach to those why questions we were asking before. So being able to sit with the individuals that are actually doing the work or involved in the work that's required. So not just taking on the face of it what the executive sort of management might have said the problem is, to go, okay, well, what's it look like at the ground level? What actually comes in from a customer? What do we have to deal with day to day? Not perfect world. We need to be able to cover all of that, because that's often where things can fall off the rails. And often that's where a little bit of the hype, if I call it that, in the AI space is AI can solve this for you. It can if it's perfectly consistent and exactly received in an expected way, but business doesn't run like that.
Yeah.
So this discovery and design process is about understanding, well, what's everything that you've got to go through and how do you deal with stuff falling off the rails now? How do we deal with the exceptions? And it's really about documenting a lot of that, bringing that forward and mapping it out, making it quite visual. We go through a process of making that very visual for both management and staff. Going through that actually brings those staff on board. This is everybody from management right down to ground level staff, because they understand then that, hey, this AI, it's not here to take my job. It's to take away this bit of frustration that annoys the hell out of me every week, because I have to do this repetitive thing where I've got to follow up the client 15 times, et cetera, because it's missing this bit of detail. So that's really what we're trying to target. And as part of that, we often find out and kind of educate, I guess, the staff around what do they really like in their job and what do they want to hold on to. Let's not take that away with AI. Instead, let's just foster that.
So on that, there's this perception mainly with the accounts teams or CFOs that with AI coming, everything should be now cheaper. How much of a reality is that in your experience and in your opinion?
Everything should. Okay, so yes, that side of it, that world is changing quite a bit on our side, and we had to a few weeks back essentially rethink our business model a little bit around that. Previously, developing out anything AI, automation, anything that required development was really about hours, development hours, and that's how it would be priced. That's where the revenue came from. Now, because a large portion of that can be done by AI, it's no longer a 16-week, give it to a dev, they sit in a dark corner and punch out code, but it changes to, well, now we need to understand how do we get AI to be consistent in this space, creating better AI prompts. And that's where some of the prompt engineering sort of scenario and that terminology has come into play. So it's just a shift in where the cost goes. It has come down overall, but it's not a complete just cut that line entirely, and it's raw savings off that.
But what we are seeing is a lot of companies are now wanting to bring staff members in their business to do a lot of this development work. So rather than going external all the time, can we now bring a staff member internally, and then can they hire us to be advisors and guide that staff member to get the outcome rather than just always going external? And that was never a thing until 2 months ago with vibe coding, because now staff members can do it themselves.
So the guys actually on the ground, on the site manager, the various tradespeople, how does any of this AI technology help them?
We're not seeing it on the ground at this point in time. We're seeing it in the back office right now. Well, that there is a huge opportunity in that space. If I can say it out loud, the unions is stopping a lot of it. So as soon as we talk about,
I think it's
as soon as we talk about on-site people, video, photos, unions get involved. They don't want the privacy, interaction.
Efficiencies that involve less people, that's an industrial relations issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think that will shift. I think there's been a big movement, especially with the Olympics coming here in Queensland, and essentially they're saying the unions have to stay out of it. So I think we'll see a big shift here. But that's what's held back from the ground level perspective until now, until recently anyway. What we're seeing is how can they use not even AI, it could be AI in the background, but essentially applications on their mobile to do a lot of things. So could they do handover documents, or could they take site photos and upload those site photos into the back end of the system? This is not AI. This is just technology. So it's like, well, the AI, the buzzword, is now enabling the conversation to be a technology conversation to go, well, why are we still doing paper? because a lot of construction sites they still do use paper.
But
it
can automate a lot of things, right? In the past that it couldn't do.
Yeah.
Where now with AI on the back end, it just allows you to do it, and also the maintenance of those apps and the build of those apps becomes a lot easier.
Correct.
But when you say it's not in the ground yet, I was quite surprised, because that's what, at the end of the day, that has the biggest efficiency gains. Would be.
I think it
100%.
will.
Yeah.
It'll change soon.
I think, I guess from some of the more, let's call it practical projects that we've done for people on the ground, it's been largely around the admin stuff that they generally suck at.
Yeah.
Call it that. Taking photos aside, proper photos, good photos, doing timesheets, for example. Like, there's a lot of timesheeting sort of stuff out there, but why not? Why do you have to open an app and punch in numbers, fat fingers, build construction fingers on a phone? That's a bit of fun. Why not just hit the button and just tell it, hey, throw in I started here at 6:55, I'm going home at 2:05. I'm at whatever job I'm at. The end. Let AI do the rest in the background. That's, to me, for most construction people, that's going to be a lot more natural. They're not going to push back on that so much, and it's not as frustrating for them in most cases.
But even having conversations, like you can record a lot of conversations now and then turn them into actionable items. Where
that's, I think, where they like to say unions and there's
but
a little bit of privacy as well that comes into play there.
But when you look at things that these industries are not good at, is the administration side of it, which is you can have all those conversations, you can do all of that, then could be building actionable items out of that. It's not just a construction industry problem, it's a problem with everyone, right?
Yeah.
And if AI can make that more efficient, then
it's just a legislation conversation, right? So as an example is let's call it timesheets, scheduling and timesheeting. The huge opportunity I see in the especially the tradie industry, where I see a huge opportunity in this space with I guess the construction industry is with the tradies that are always on site. So we work with a lot of plumbers or sparkies or they're always in their utes, they're always traveling from site to site. Where there's a lack of technology is with the actual people on the ground. They're still doing it the old school way. Maybe they might be using an app here and there, but what I call it the old school way, where we can automate the entire time tracking scenario now. These apps already have what we call open APIs, where we can integrate, say, AI. We can pull data from these apps. We can pull GPS locations. We know when a tradie goes to a site, they're clocking on for that site. When they leave that site, they're clocking off for that site, that time in the between. And then we can also integrate AI. So when they're leaving site, they can have that quick conversation. I use this particular material on site. I use this equipment, whatever it might be, because the number one thing we hear all the time from any tradie, timesheets never get done. We don't know what we're invoicing, and we also are not invoicing materials that are being used on site. That's all lost revenue. That happens at every tradie organization nationally, globally. That's like such a quick win in my mind. I don't know why they're not embracing that opportunity.
Yeah, well. It's interesting. There's an app, I won't mention which one it is, but my wife and I both use, and that's understanding where each of us are at any given time. And that just stops us having to pick up the phone and ringing each other up going, are you still at work, or are you here, are you here? A lot of my mates don't like that theory, but I don't have anything to hide as far as where I am. But what I'm getting at is that app has even got that technology that I spent this, and I look on there and it says my wife's been at this thing for 8 hours and 25 minutes. So, and then it does your travel time that, okay, you've driven from there to there. That's almost, you give that with your employees, that some admin girl sitting in the office and you know that he was on this site from that time to that time because he stopped, there was traveling for this.
It's all done.
But I think that's where the industrial relation issue comes in, right? Like everything from collecting voice data to collecting location data, then that becomes a privacy issue and a lot of the can of worms that are
for any of the builders that are under that sort of EBA sort of scenario.
I was going to say, well, there's the vast majority in Queensland, for example, are non-union. So you've got the whole residential sector. None of those guys are involved in the unions. We're dealing with those top tier firms.
Yeah. But I think now we're talking about the downside of the social impact of how AI could have an impact as well. So I think it is a can of worms, but there is a lot of technology that can bring efficiency that may cross that boundary of or push that boundary of that grey area of.
Oh, I say we're a technology company. We'll tell you what's possible from a technology point of view.
Yeah.
It's up to you from a legal, compliance, risk, unions. It's up to you to figure that landscape out. We'll say this is what's possible from that point of view. We'll give you insights of what we've heard in the industry, of course. But, it's a grey area in most cases, so push the boundaries if you can.
Yeah.
Dean, what do you see as the most effective AI piece of AI or automation that's coming?
That's coming. Okay, so even
well, let me ask two questions. What's out there right now, and then what's coming?
That's the most effective in business. I guess I'll keep it focused to the construction space because I think every business will have different levers that they would want to pull on in that sort of area. I would think anything to do with voice, for me, feels a lot more natural in the construction space because you're not having to worry about fat fingers, as I said before. That feels a lot more natural. And the more that you can do out in the field just by talking to something and getting speech back. So both ways, not just talking to something, but having it talk back in a language that makes sense to a construction person, the instructions, whatever questions that might come up. To me, I think as of right now, that is quite strong.
Yeah.
I think what will probably come up in future, and it's still a little ways off, will be the vision element of that. And I'm going to put the whole EBA stuff aside, but to be able to, say, for example, take a photo of site or show the video of site and to understand that, the scaffold's been put up in the right way, or no, there's no safety concerns across that. That's really elevating safety. That's really elevating efficiency for the team to make sure they're building the right things in the right spots or whatever the case may be. And I think it'll feed into another real major pain point, which is swims that need to happen across a lot of sites. That's going to be a big thing for them as we start to see that flesh out. Yeah.
Think about robotics, right? Think about like having a robotic dog, or I say dog, but whatever item that might be, with cameras like a rover going around your construction site with live video footage that's bringing back to your head office and it's been analysed on everything Dean just touched on. That could be 24/7. You don't have humans walking around trying to do checklists. Technology can do it. You talk about drones, but talk about like robotic devices doing that. It's a huge opportunity in this space, but I think, us as Queenslanders or even Aussies, we're pretty far behind when it comes to compliance and regulation and risks associated with it.
If we get a construction business owner listening to this episode, what's one habit you think they could change that would be the biggest game changer for them?
Can I say it out loud?
Yeah.
Change your mindset. Change your mindset of what's possible. Just because you've used that spreadsheet for 30 years doesn't mean you still have to. If you change your mindset to go, if I'll start this company today, what would I do differently? Ignore the legacy, the heartache that I've gone through. If I start this company again today, how would I do it differently? And the only thing I think what we miss as humans, we always forget to ask the question from the customer. What does the customer want? What outcome are they looking for? If that's the outcome, how can we get to that outcome faster, better, cheaper, more reliable, more consistency?
So I listened to a podcast last week and you just reminded me of it then, is for the people, you mentioned law firm earlier, and if you've got that law firm, you've got that Kodak camera, but you've got somebody young who's just starting up a business where the business is built around AI, not built around an existing structure that's not prone to change, and just how they're going to just overtake the industry. Where I'm going with that is I'm wondering from a construction perspective, how that level of technology, being construction such a doing on-site type activity, that there'd be some advice out there to some younger guy at 25 who maybe just finished his apprenticeship and can actually wanting to build his business based on AI. What would you say to him?
We're seeing already 25, 30-year-olds where they think differently, right? They don't have that legacy of just because we've always done it that way. Because there's a lot of compliance in the construction industry, they're going, well, I'm here to be a builder. I'm not here to do compliance. So what you normally find now, you normally have all these compliance officers, then you have all the HR team, then you have all the project managers, and then you've got some people on site building. But all the back end office is actually just you don't need it, right? Because all that can be AI agents. So if you go, well, I'm here to build you a house, a townhouse, a story building, a complex, whatever you're there to build, you're there to build. So any back-end administrative work, which is all administrative work, everything we just talked about, is now AI. You don't need any back-end people at all ever again in life. That's how the new generation are thinking. The other older school businesses will get there eventually, but it's going to be a 3-year journey to have that mindset change.
So on that, let me ask this question from both of you. Which industries and which jobs do you see displaced in the next year and the next 5 years?
Well, I'm definitely not leaving school or coming out of university wanting to be an admin clerk. That's for sure.
Or a lawyer.
Oh, well, I think lawyers are still going to have a place. Someone's got to...
I think they're going to have a place.
I think they'll have much more productive. I think this is where the question I'm asking is mainly because I think there's still going to be professions where AI is going to assist them to be more productive. I'm asking the ones that are going to be displaced. So I'm saying a radiologist is going to be... I don't think they're ever going to be displaced, but they are going to be able to do more work and give us much better results. Same with the lawyer, right? Like you're going to have that human element still there. They're probably going to be able to read a whole bunch of stuff. Like, you know, the way you see a lawyer is you got a whole bunch of interns that are reading. That's going to be a thing of the past. But where do you guys think the true displacement where a full AI agent takes over that role?
So you think it was admin? You're putting towards that very administrative clerk role. If I'm thinking industry specific, I think marketing is going to be one of the big hits. Anything that is heavily digital, digital delivery in particular, comes away from it. I think they're going to get hit the hardest. In terms of legal and that, I did want to. I guess the thing that is ripe for disruption there. I think the biggest hurdle, and whilst a lot of lawyers and people that own those sort of firms like the idea of these models that are coming out, the legal ones, they haven't really thought, think about how they bill us. It's time. So what happens when we reduce the amount of time that it takes to now do a particular job? Their revenue is immediately.
If the revenue is going to jump,
problem that we just went through around development. We just said development is going to get cut time,
and it's the same for consultants, right? Like you can deliver the same consultancy project in a weekend that used to take me a weekend. I can do it in 2 hours.
I'll answer your question, and I'll let you jump in, Magnus. But the answer to that question, Dawn, is anyone who's not embracing the AI toolset, whatever that toolset is, will lose the race. There will not be a job for them. But the new generation coming in, they're creating new jobs, new responsibilities, new ways of working in whatever field, whatever industry, because they're embracing the technology. So one thing, I don't think it's a industry. It's definitely job roles. 100% are being displaced. But entire sectors are going to have to rethink how they even perform that particular activity, because that will be gone.
What I was going to say was when I look at it as a hybrid type model. So when you look at law, and I completely get what you're saying as far as the time goes, I got a friend of mine that does a lot of tutoring, right? And they say the teachers are never going to be redundant because you need that personnel, you need that one-on-one. Not every parent can afford $80 an hour for their child, but when you've got a hybrid model where that one teacher is doing 3 kids, or you get the AI to be integrating, helping one kid with their homework, you as the tutor, instead of them going off doing AI, you charge $10 an hour and you build an AI agent that specialises in year 7 mathematics. You can then charge that out at $10 an hour. You're still charging out the individual. It's the same with the law firm. You've got some issues where you'll take this through one of our AI agents that the law firm builds. They charge that AI agent out at $50 an hour and not $700 an hour for the lead legal guy. So you need both.
But it still becomes really interesting how you price that, right? Because it is going to, I think that's going to be I
think it's a big industry change.
Yep. But I think as a law firm or as a tutor, you need to have both. You need to be able to offer both. If you're not embracing any of the AI, you're going to get law firms that are just going to be set up as AI, where you go to them and you're going to get this price. To me, would be able to...
I don't know if that's easy as you think, though. How do you change the mindset of a law firm that charges $300 an hour for the cheapest person in their portfolio, now saying, oh, well, it's going to be $50. It's never... Because that's easily a huge drop in revenue. That's right. And that's where...
It's going to be value-based pricing.
Yeah.
Hourly rate's gone.
Hourly rates are gone. I don't think it can be an hourly... base, and that's going to be the fundamental.
Laws, in my experience with law, it's
legal, but
it's a difficult one for a result, because the result is isn't as simple as it's just this to be able to get there, because there's so many hoops. And you mentioned compliance, like the construction industry, I don't think people realise is the most heavily compliant industry out there. It's more compliant than medical. And that the more automation you have with that, the better.
That story around the value of consultancy, right? There's this story that I heard years ago where, they hired at a rig, they hired a consultant. He came in, he looked at the problem and he said, yeah, hit the nail on there. And then he left and sent a bill for, $1,500, right?
10
grand. And they said, 10 grand, let's say, right? It's like, you spent 10 minutes. How do you justify $10,000? He said, well, if anyone else came, they would have spent 3 days looking for that nail. Mm-hmm. I saw that nail, and that's experience. Yeah. I think that's the mindset that I think that's going to need. I don't think it's the mindset of the service provider. It's a consumer that's going to have to change, because someone who gives you an answer within 5 minutes and charging you $10,000. So that's going to be the trick. I think we're going to run out of time, but I do want to ask your thoughts, a very quick answer on agentic AI, where agents are valuable right now and where you think they're going to be valuable in the future.
So that agentic AI, I guess that's really the practical implementation. We're moving away from the toys, that is just talking back and forth, to it doing something for you on your behalf out in the real world. And they can be very small. They can be very big in terms of what they can do. But typically what we're seeing more of in that, and where the real value comes from, is when you have multiple agents all working together to get a bigger sort of outcome. And something that's often overlooked is having agents that can check on other agents and things like that. That's where I think that's where the bigger play is coming into the market now.
How far are we from
that? Well, you can kind of see it now with the likes of, say, OpenClaw and Claude Cowork, and I know OpenAI has one, and I can't remember the name of it. It doesn't matter. They're kind of already in play now, but they're very much that sort of retail-facing version of this.
Yeah.
You can certainly build your own, and you can use the AI tools to build their own agents. So that's where some of this is getting really exciting.
And Microsoft Copilot has the Copilot agents, but then they also have Copilot Cowork, which will be released in the next few months.
In your opinion, what has been the most exciting technology implementation over the last 12 years for you guys?
So I wouldn't be able to pick one particular project, but I'll give you some examples on a few where the staff members start actively using the AI that has been custom built for their business with their own data set and getting real live outcomes. So the example Dean gave before, we released this one for this timber company, maybe September, October last year. For 4 months, crickets, hardly any use. You look at the results, you look at the thing, hardly any uptake, right? Fast forward to February this year, and the uptake just went from hardly anything to like massive spikes. And you talk to the individual users, the salespeople, the individual people using these, the technology, they're like, I'm giving the answers to the builders or the architects on the spot. Well, yeah, that's what it was built for. It's like their eyes just light up, and they're just like, oh, this is a thing. And it's like the customers are now really happy. I'm getting deals. I'm winning more deals. Like it's those moments where it's a bit of takes a while for it to happen. But I think once it does happen and you see that light bulb moment go off, you're like, okay, now I see that's the true value. And you go, oh, you feel so good. You're like, oh, finally people are embracing this. But society is really far behind in embracing technology, right? So, we've solved some really cool, crazy things over the last 12 years, but it's not about the cool, crazy things that we've solved. It's the use of the technology and what the people are actually using it for, and on the ground is pretty exciting.
Nice.
Dean's got to go. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're just going to wrap it up with the quick fire questions for Lucas. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Dean. He's got to go and solve problems.
Yes, I do. Straight into it, indeed.
Quick fire question time, Don.
Go for it, mate.
Lucas, you ready? The most expensive lesson you've learned the hard way.
Whoa. I'm always too early. I don't know if I can say that out loud. I've been too early in so many industries where invested too early, down the wrong industry too early, tried to launch too early, the world of society is 3-5 years away.
What technology on the market today do you think genuinely is overhyped?
I would say AI is pretty overhyped. Underhyped is robotics.
That was my next question. What's underestimated right now at the moment?
100% robotics, because people are very much arm length of it right now.
You really think so? You
100%.
think you don't think we're looking at robotics in the wrong way? Trying to solve a problem with a human
You got the
intervention?
humanoid, obviously got the humanoid robotics, but I think what else can it do outside the humanoid experience? And there's so much opportunity, because I travel around the country. I speak to business owners nationally. The biggest problem most manufacturers or warehouse organizations have, or logistics, they can't find staff to do the warehouse jobs. So if you can't find staff, but you need someone to do it, robotics can do it for you.
The worst piece of advice you've ever heard a vendor give a client?
I hear it all the time. I heard this last week. I said, can I see your road? This is to a vendor. I won't name names. Can I see your AI roadmap? Oh, no, we've got 20 years of manufacturing experience. You don't need to see our AI roadmap, because we know exactly how to solve the problem in that manufacturing plant.
A book or podcast that shifted your thinking in the last 12 months?
The last 12 months. That's a topical one. So my main podcast that I go to every single day is the All In podcast, but it has become very political the last little while.
I agree.
Tough one to listen to these days.
It has become very one-sided.
Let's take it back. What about a book that's had the biggest impact in your life that you've read?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep. The one thing you wish every director listening to this would actually do tomorrow?
Take responsibility and stop delegating.
Final question. Finish this sentence. Mastery is?
Not just knowing, but doing.
Well said. It's been a pleasure, mate. It's nice to have you on the opposite side of the table for a change. Really think that what you're doing in this AI space is very, very exciting, and I don't think you're too early on this one, mate. I think you've timed it.
Yeah,
just right. I think you were too early back in 2014, but I think you're on the money now, and people just got to start using it.
As they say, mate, any entrepreneur, you need one to work, and I think you're onto it this time. So
thanks for being
going.
your second favourite podcast host.
Until next time, Don, thank you.
Thank you, Magnus and Lucas. Been a pleasure.
Thanks, boys.
Hope you enjoyed this exciting episode of the Mastering Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, hit that subscribe button now and share this episode with a friend. Until next time.